doing today? Yeah. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Rylan Pozniak Daniels. I'm a cross-platform XR developer. I want to talk to you today about a wild venture where I made 3 XR apps in 3 months and the cross-platform future that makes that possible. So, I've been doing XR for the last 10 years. I'm 23 years old, and I've done XR at least like NASA, Apple, Niantic, Snapchat, multiple XR companies. And I've done a lot of different hackathons, recording things like the MIT Reality Hack, Stanford XR hackathons, and things like that. And also a former AWE award winner. And I'm going to talk to you about 3 apps I made. Dungeon Chat, Udemy, and Flexible, and they are all available on 4 platforms. That's Apple Vision Pro, MetaQuest, iOS, and Android. In fact, I believe, as far as you can tell, I think that these are actually maybe the first apps ever in history to be available on all 4 of these platforms, so across XR and mobile. And I'm also to dive into the cross-platform XR tool that really made it all possible, that I figured out how to make design and technology fuse in a way that can support many different classes of devices, both current and future devices. So the 3 apps, the first one is Dungeon Chat. It's endless AI quest, a little bit like prompting an AI narrator to generate any kind of story in any kind of location that you can imagine, and it'll generate environments that sort of visualize the story and further immerse you in that environment. There's Udemy, which is a retro-style pixel-through adventure, and Flexible, a unique flapping game where you can either use your hands or touch interaction on phones to make a bird avoid obstacles as it flies into the sky. And I'm probably most known for AR Lingo, which was, I had a partnership with Apple to launch an app on day 1 of the Apple Vision Pro App Store. We'll launch it on day 1. And AR Lingo is the world's first immersive language learning app for the Apple Vision Pro. Basically, the way it works is you can talk to AI characters and travel places around the world. You can imagine a restaurant in Tokyo, Japan, and practice speaking Japanese with AI characters to learn the new languages. But I was trying to think for my next project, how do we go beyond AR Lingo? How do we really take things to the next level with a brand new app? And there are really kind of 3 key areas I want to focus on. Now, the first is a truly cross-platform interface. So AR Lingo was really made exclusively for Apple platforms and used the Apple tech stack. But we're trying to see how we support even non-Apple platforms and all the various popular XR and mobile platforms. Also, LLM conversations. So we actually make real-time generated conversations with AI characters rather than scripted conversations that will be in AR Lingo, where in AR Lingo you're kind of like repetitively practicing the same conversations. You can really use AI to kind of enhance the gameplay as much as possible. And then also multimodal AI input. So we use voice, touch interaction, keyboard, different ways to interact with AI characters in virtual worlds. So, introducing Dungeon Chat. So, Dungeon Chat is a first-of-its-kind AI storytelling app where you can prompt AI to create these virtual environments themed around any kind of story you want. So it could be a medieval fantasy village, all the way to an enchanted forest, or even a spooky cave. And it'll also create these 3D environments that accompany the LLM tech. The first step to achieve this was figuring out multi-platform interface. How do we make something that works seamlessly across Apple Vision Pro, MetaQuest, iPhone, and Android? So, I see here, we started with these little windows that exist in kind of a holographic, volumetric way. Now, Vision Pro is known for kind of holographic windows that you can drag around by using a kind of pinch and hold interaction to kind of place volumetric content around your physical 3D environment. This is something that doesn't work exactly the same on MetaQuest. So, what it is the piece that's circled in red on the left of the Apple Vision Pro is using the native kind of window dragging bar, which is kind of like you can assume to face things. And I actually remade the kind of my own version of that bar for the MetaQuest system. So it kind of has the same sort of like the design points on both platforms. The next step was to figure out how do you actually, make this interface come to life with an agentic AI, and that uses an LLM. Now, there's two different ways to use LLMs in apps today. You either use a cloud-based LLM, sort of like ChatGPT, where it just streams the AI generation that comes from the cloud into the app, or you use a local one, what you call, sort of embeds the LLM inside the code of the app itself. The cloud-based LLMs are very fast and mobile, but they don't require an internet connection. But you have access to lots of data and all of, but basically anything that ChatGPT has access to, you can access through a cloud LLM. But it doesn't cost money. So for each time you do a generation, you have to pay for it as a developer. And then also you have to set up a database with the exact security make sure it's encrypted and kind of extra setup that versus a one-run challenge. It's kind of not really something I want to focus on. I want to spend some time on the experience. So I landed with a local, which is absolutely free. But locally, it has no database required, but it might be laggy on mobile devices. This is something I was going to address. How to make it perform well on local devices. And it only has access to the data that is directly available in the app. So you can't really use rendering database applications. So how do we interact with the large language model? I first started by thinking the prototype, but this was the first prototype of a universal keyboard and voice system where it was an request and there's a pro any kind of system. It is using the keyboard offset inside the game engine to kind of let you speak or type to the AI narrator. But what happened is it didn't really work well and it wasn't very accurate because each device had a different design configurations. So the key benefit here, or the decision was to use each device's native keyboard and voice input. So we see an example here of speech prompts on Apple Vision Pro, where we're using actually native Apple Vision Pro keyboard and microphone voice interaction to spawn generated environment. So the way this works is you can speak into the microphone and it will generate this 3D, it's kind of a diagram of portal that will work in virtual reality. But another really cool feature is, say you're in VR and you don't want to type in front of on the keyboard, and you don't want to speak, you just kind of want to possibly experience the story a little bit on the trigger on the book that's kind of playing the electric 40. Well, we have AI suggested prompts, which is actually suggested through a future testing method, where it'll just kind of create this prompt, like, for example, you're in kind of like fish market and it suggests, could you investigate these elements who are extremely fish in the medieval fish market. A really unique feature of Dungeon Chat was this sort of a mixed reality diagram that kind of make 2D images come to life in a more immersive way. So this started with a little bit of drawing to the image generation, where I prompted an AI to create this from my text prompt these sort of picturesque images in the style I wanted. And then it has to be brought into a custom variant of Stable Diffusion, which will basically use AI to kind of extract the depth map, it's called, which will extract. It basically creates kind of grayscale map where the white pixels represent pixels that are closest to the camera, and the black pixels will be further away from the camera. And then on the right, when brought into Unity and mixed reality, it will kind of create this kind of a cohesive 3D model where it looks like it kind of floats that's on the water over which the image will come out of the portal and show up in a really cool mixed reality immersive way. And then, depth is really interesting because there are actually different ways to make depth through an AI-generated system. So on the left we have the algorithmic way, which is kind of more like a traditional computer vision approach, where this uses a computer vision algorithm kind of figure out the depth information. But the real advance here was generative AI, where it actually creates using stable diffusion a much more accurate, a much more beautiful like diffusion of the depth information from the images on the web. Let's talk about portals. Portals are really cool. I mean, in mixed reality, you just kind of place these on the wall and they kind of come out of the wall and kind of look into the wall as well. So portals are really central to the digital experience because they're kind of where I figured out how to make these 3D environments cross-platform across XR and mobile. So that way, it kind of uses this kind of frame of the phone shape, which was shown in mixed reality. So look inside it, it gets parallax effect, and on the right, it's how it looks like in mixed reality. Now, I did also experiment a bit with using Sora to generate videos that would kind of give some kind of movement depth and kind of like different sort of a visual effects with it. Ultimately, I didn't include the Sora stuff specifically because it didn't really play well with the kind of the 3D generated depth map of the 3D model. But it's kind of cool to see the potential how, I think as like the AI advances and more kind of on-platform artificial made that, AI video that could be a great way to kind of visualize generative 3D environments in XR mobile apps. So speaking of video things, let's talk about a fast-paced game called Food Me. So this is Food Me. It's basically a mixed reality mobile experience where you're kind of controlling the characters from the shoot at the enemies that come down from the top, and you just kind of do a pinch interaction of like this to kind of handheld shooting at the interaction, and the mobile will be a kind of touch interaction of the throwing fingers. Now, the video has kind of a pretty funny story, because I actually had this idea for like a long time. I was kind of always interested in what are kind of all the kind of interesting sort of facts that can inspire stories for kind of active game concepts. And Food is actually this fruit from South America. It was actually the favorite fruit of Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom in the 19th century. And it's kind of a cool concept. That's kind of history of that. And I made a fixed bit of character based off the real fruits and kind of draw inspiration from the real world into a mixed reality experience. So these were the first prototypes where I was trying to see how this interaction work in a cross-platform way. So on the left up we see how the enemies are kind of dropping down on the sky and kind of actually coming into the environment. So we're not limited to just the kind of scene of the phone simulation, but they actually kind of come off the screen and into your real world. I ended up not using that feature for kind of product because I just wanted to kind of cohesive design between all the platforms. So no matter the whole platform, it kind of have a consistent the design, the feel, and an interactive style of the same to various platforms. On the right, it's kind of experimenting, sort of blending different styles between a more realistic, or more cartoonish kind of thing. Ultimately ended up with more consistent style that kind of fits it in all the frames, all the characters, all the sprites, and things like that. The parallax looks really fun on this because as you move your head, it sort of looks like the characters kind of jump out of the screen at you. On mobile, it looks more kind of 2D and flat, but here it looks like as you move your head and see it at different angles, the text, the characters, things like that come out. That's sort of like another way to do spatial computing, where 2D apps sort of come to life by having kind of 3D dimensionality and depth. And these are really fun slides kind of showing the kind of cross-platform nature of it, where on the left we have a Meta Quest, in the middle we have the Apple Vision Pro version. And now what's interesting about the Vision Pro version is Vision Pro right now takes into account more information about the ambient light in the environment. So tries to kind of mimic the kind of colors and textures of the scene to imitate the real colors of the actual environment. So if you play Ruby in the AWE Conference Center, it will actually look slightly different in terms of its colors and materials than if you're playing maybe in the living room or outside or a different environment. And on the right, we have the mobile version, where it's more like a touch interactive thing, where you kind of click to shoot at enemies. But we designed it consistent between the iOS version and the Android version. Let's talk about Flexible, and really, this is kind of a fun one. It's showing how, not just the 2D experience, but 3D experiences can work across, mobile, XR, and different platforms that might still be actually working. So Flexible, this is kind of fun one, where we're using a similar kind of a pinch mechanic, like looking to kind of make the bird, avoid obstacles by changing the scale of the bird. So use some pinch and hold to make the bird scale up and increase the size, and then let go to kind of make it kind of drop down to a smaller size. And this was the first mobile prototype. I want to get the mobile version done first because mobile phones are the most successful forms of technology these days, and it uses kind of the core design principle where you can tap and hold to increase the size of the Flexible bird. It also has a procedurally generated levels where an algorithm will kind of make it so the game's like a different type of game each time you play. So each time you play, it's a unique world, a unique experience. And then it also says in the my like a Discord community to make sure that the interface was as intuitive and simple and minimal as possible. So just anyone who can pick it up and use it very seamlessly. Now the extra version is really kind of I think it's kind of a really fun one because you're not taking that visual interaction with touch interaction and transforming it with the pinching and the moving concept and it makes fingers take it off. But similarly to both moving and when to trash, it uses kind of the parallax effect where I just kind of move around your head in XR, so you tilt your head and kind of see different angles to kind of peering into the virtual world of the Flexible. So it kind of has that sort of parallax effect of that. And now I want to talk about the really interesting thing. Talk about the world world, where people might be, where might be going. Maybe not just yet, but in the future, but the years to come. I think that the future of XR apps is kind of started with this foundation. I established with three XR apps in 3 months, where it's like interoperable. Apps are not, I think most studios today that make apps for XR platforms, sort of choose one headset. Like they say, we're going to make, MetaQuest game, or we're going to make a visual pro app. They don't really, usually make apps for different platforms as well. I think the future is one where not only the technology, but the design of the apps themselves will kind of fit not only on today's platforms on like mobile phones and kind of pass through XR headsets like the 570 Pro, but also future platforms that emerging very fast, like the Lego Orion and Snapchat Spectacles and other kinds of some lightweight AR glasses. So I think the kind of key takeaway here is that I think apps will, no longer be limited to only one form factor, but think of it more like the content, and then how that fits across, different platforms. So, I started with a 2D base in each of those options, Flexibility and then the chat, right? So we're augmenting them with 3D effects, so these will work on 2D screens, as well as 3D and one virtual platform. Also, I think, the rate of technology changes across the world. We might adopt most cutting-edge, most classes sooner. Let's say like the US, but perhaps in other countries, mobile phones may continue to still be prominent phone factor for many years to come. And so it's kind of to reach the most kind of scale with your app, it can be worth considering how the app can work across different classes of devices from 2D to 3D. So yeah, the 3 apps and the chat, Ruby Flexible, probably some of the first in history ever to be on all 4 platforms simultaneously: Vision Pro, Quest, iOS, and Android, and one cross-platform design system that works across XR and mobile that enables it all. So yeah, I'm Rylan Pozniak Daniels, and I'd love to open up for Q&A. Do you find yourself having learned any sort of UI or UX lessons after having developed for multiple platforms at once? Does that face any constraints on you? Do you have to keep anything in mind? That's a great question. I think that one of the key things I took away from this process was that we always try to think what are the kind of opportunities that these cross device offers? So the fact that you work in a pass-through devices and emerging things like when the lightweight AR glasses sort of let you sort of come up with the 3D reality things. That lets you augment the mobile phone experience in a really exciting way. So I think the design can sort of start with sort of the most accessible version of the app that get augmented with sort of newer form factors that are emerging. So I think it's a little bit about the future-proofing the app and making the design as future-proof as possible. Interesting. Quickly break that all up. Did you ever feel tempted to maybe make an exception on a particular platform, maybe this looks like a big reality, but it doesn't on mobile? You might have to make an exception and you can try to show you. Yeah, I think I was trying to make it so as much as possible, all the features will work no matter what platform it is. Certainly there will be some kind of visual differences. Maybe you'll get more parallax or more depth on the XR devices, but as much as possible, we'll play same features with a code this whole about users. And thank you. Of course.
We have time for a couple more questions if anyone else has.
I'm curious as to what's next for you. Are you thinking of developing more apps for all the platforms, not that the platforms are growing as well? Or are you thinking of taking the direction of, let's say, Flutter takes up on multiple platforms at the same time? Would you want to work on some open source SDK project where you can make applications for all at the same time?
Those all sound the same ideas. I think that I'm really interested in, as new hardware comes out, San Francisco's and Orion, always kind of new headsets or form factors. I'm really interested also in porting these apps to those headsets and the new glasses as well. I think that because I designed it in a way that sort of can, let me use the kind of base features and always with the possible device. I think that basically, these apps, also future apps, are able to explore different devices. I will say that for them, another area I'm very interested in is called generative AI, and also make the design kind of more automatically work on different devices. So as you just have a system that automatically just make the app work on different devices, or make even your UI design so you work on XR, mobile, or even maybe things we haven't even thought about. I don't know, maybe get early here, just you imagine what that'll look like, just kind of visualize that. So I'm kind of really interested in working with those new platforms as well.
We have time for one or two more short questions.
Hi, I was curious, are each of these applications built on a single code base, and did you build tooling to be able to sort of deploy each of them onto their platform? Or how are you doing with cross-platform services?
Yeah, sure. So fundamentally, it uses the community game engine as a fundamental core architecture, and then of course any development plugins that might associate with the various platforms. Right now it's a bit fragmented where each plugin and regularly used sort of is meant for that specific device. And what I create is kind of an abstraction that just makes things easier. So you might update content and add more characters and environments to app. I don't have to kind of rethink or redo the kind of code to come up with an architecture to add content and my design system to make that content work and make it really updated.